Hello and welcome to Kloeker's Education Foundation, where we provide quality content for amazing teachers and students. If you're joining us from a previous lesson or previous video, welcome back. And if this is your first time, we're glad you're here. This is our World History series, and this lesson is on Alexander the Great and the Hellenistic culture. Before we get started, don't forget to check out the link in the description below for a set of free guided notes to this lesson. So let's dive in. Our main question for this lesson is, how did Alexander the Great's conquest influence the ancient world, and in what ways did the Hellenistic culture shape ancient Greece and the regions it touched? So this lesson is divided into three parts to achieve that objective. Number one, King Philip II conquering Greece. 2, Alexander conquering Persia and expanding his empire. And 3, Hellenism. Now, our objective is that students will be able to analyze the legacy of Alexander the Great and evaluate how the spread of Hellenistic culture influenced the political, cultural, and intellectual life in Greece and the surrounding areas. So let's set the stage. Alexander the Great and his father are not Greek, they are from Macedonia, which is located north of Greece, as you can see on this map. North of Sparta, north of Athens. People live in mountain villages instead of city-states. Now, while they consider themselves to be Greek, Greeks do not look down on them. They consider them uncivilized and foreigners who live out in the boonies. You know what the boonies are? It's so far out in the country that animals question whether you live there. That's where they think of Macedonia. So King Philip II is going to launch a massive invasion into ancient Greece. Now, Philip II becomes king of Macedonia at the age of 23, and he takes this rugged peasant group from the mountains and trains them into a professional military. The Phalanx, the 16 by 16 block of men. They each carry a shield. They're in armor. They got a sword and an 18-foot pike. You can see here how the formation, the first 5 or 6 pikes are dropped down and stick out beyond the front row. So if someone is charging them, whether it's cavalry or infantry, there's a wall of death. And even if you manage to knock one out of the way, there's 4 or 5 more pikes ready to stab you. It's not a great thing to run into. He pairs that with fast-moving cavalry, and he is unstoppable. He invades Greeks not to destroy, not to enslave the Greeks. He wants to conquer them and include them into the Macedonian Empire. And so as he is invading, Athens and Thebes join forces. You can see here him and his son Alexander take their phalanx, and their groups are marching, but ultimately they're going to split the Thebians and the Athenians, and they're going to decimate them. They're going to end the independence of Greece. King Philip controls all of Greece and then sets out to exact revenge on the Persian Empire, but ultimately he will never get there, because after he conquers Greece 2 years after this decisive battle, he dies and is killed at his daughter's wedding. There is a Hollywood portrayal of Alexander as directed by Oliver Stone. Now, there are some things that this film gets right. Some of the major battles, the Conquest of Persia, those are historically consistent. Alexander's character, his ambition, some of the personal drama he had with his wives, the cultural blending of Greek and Persian cultures is very accurate, but there are places where it does stray away from accuracy. The timeline is compressed and some things are rearranged within the historical events that affect the narrative. The character portrayals, Angelina Jolie plays with a lot of artistic license to veer off historical accuracies. There's emphasis on his personal struggles rather than the fact he organized an empire that controlled the known ancient world. And of course, some of the battles in India are misportrayed and clumped all together as one instead of a series of campaigns which he led. Ultimately, though, It's a pretty solid movie. There are some scenes that are inappropriate for the general audience, so please watch them with parental permission. So Alexander the Great, you can see the historical rendering of him on the left and a 3D makeup of him on the right, looking like Timothée Chalamet if he actually ate a meal. Now, taking over after his father passed away at the age of 20, he is incredibly young in order to be doing this. He's taught by Aristotle, one of the great classic philosophers of Greece. He learns science, he learns geography and literature. He studies the heroic deeds in Homer's depiction of Troy, of Achilles during the Trojan War, and the fact he has military experience. He crushed rebellions, 6,000 Thebans in one, and they were absolutely frightened he was going to decimate the Greeks, and so most of them just accepted him as their leader. They didn't try to fight back when he established himself on the throne. Alexander has a firm control over ancient Greece, but he wants to expand. King Darius wants peace, and Alex is like, my father wanted peace, a little piece of Greece, a little piece of Turkey, and a little piece of Persia. Alexander gets his troops together and launches an invasion into Anatolia, or modern-day Turkey. He meets the Persian army. He destroys them on the battlefield, absolutely victorious, suffers only a few hundred casualties. He continues his advance into Anatolia. The Persians respond with an even larger army. Now, historical records vary between 50 and 70,000 troops at this battle, but they meet the Macedonians and they're no match for Alexander and the Phalanx. The Macedonians break through the weak points of Darius's line. They decimate the Persian army. Darius flees and Alexander controls all of Anatolia, but this is not the end. In 332, Alexander takes his forces now that he's firmly been in control of Anatolia. He's only been on the throne for 4 years, and he says, I'm ready for more. What you got, throw it at me. He launches an invasion into Southwest Asia, the Middle East, into Mesopotamia, but focuses and brings his army down the Mediterranean coast into Egypt. The Egyptians see him. They welcome him as a liberator. He is so much better than the Persians. He's so much nicer, and they love him. They crown him pharaoh and ruler of ancient Egypt as a god king to lead the land. Yes, we talked about that in our previous video, the River Valley Civilizations. Go check it out if you want. Alexander is welcomed as a hero and is like, oh my gosh, now that I've liberated you, will you fight for me? And with a resounding yes, they respond, and he drafts up more troops in order to go and expand into Mesopotamia. So it's 331. Alexander is launching his invasion from ancient Greece into Mesopotamia because he wants another piece. A piece of Mesopotamia, a piece of Persia, a piece of ancient... You know what? Give him the whole world at this point. Now he marches into Mesopotamia and he meets King Darius at Gaugamela. Now, historians debate how many troops King Darius had. Some historical records say it was over 1 million. However, that's very unlikely. It is much more likely, and more accurate records and consistent say 250,000 Persians. Now, Alexander has just about 47,000 troops entirely. He is outnumbered 5-1. And so he meets King Darius on an open field and lures them in, absolutely decimates the Persians, and then launches a massive attack followed by a cavalry charge. And the Persian line, now losing most of their cavalry, is on the run. They're on the ropes like Buster Douglas just got knocked down by Mike Tyson. They are fleeing from battle, and Alexander, who was outnumbered 5-1, at least 5-1, has now conquered another ancient river valley civilization and is expanding his empire. He's only been on the throne for 5 years. Now, he has conquered more land in 5 years than anyone has ever done at this point in time. It's absolutely impressive. Now, Alexander's empire expands across the ancient known world from Macedonia and ancient Egypt across Mesopotamia, through Persia, and across the Indus River into India. Alexander was not just a military genius, he was a political savant, greatly respected by all underneath him in his civilizations, and the men that he led on battle, fought, and died for him. He was always at the front, putting himself in the most dangerous positions. Very famously was struck in the head by an axe and shot in the chest with an arrow, almost dying, but still continued to fight and serve at the front of the lines with his men. He famously said, "A king does not ask his men to go where he will not lead." When they were crossing the deserts, he refused to drink until every soldier had gotten water before him. He would recognize bravery. He would remember soldiers by name and speak to them directly. He would honor those who died with funerals and games. He would make sure their families paid no taxes. Back in Macedonia, veterans were given pensions. He would continue to pay them. They're done serving. They go back home. He is still paying them for the service they gave. He kept very little to no money in all of the conquest, but spread it amongst his soldiers. The veterans often settled in new cities, which helped cultural diffusion. They loved him deeply. He was above and beyond, and many know that his soldiers would follow him to the end of the known world. So when he is expanding across Persia and chasing King Darius, he makes it to India and finds out that King Darius was murdered several years prior, and that they've been hiding this as he's been going and expanding his empire. And so now that Persia has been conquered and he's crossed the Indus River, he's decided it is time to return home. 11 years on the road, and he finally turns back to go and return to Macedonia, or perhaps plan a new expansion into the Middle East. Now, unfortunately for Alexander, he makes it back to Babylon in Iraq, and after a banquet develops a fever and dies after about 10 to 12 days. And many don't know the causes of death. There's many theories behind it. The possibility of malaria or typhoid, of alcohol poisoning or exhaustion, or perhaps he had an autoimmune disorder. All of these are prominent theories. Some suggest he was poisoned. However, the deep love and respect that the people had for him makes it unlikely. And also, poison would probably not have taken 10 to 12 days to kill him. It would have been much sooner if that was the case. So Alexander has had a no good, dirty, rotten day and has died. And now his empire is in shambles. It breaks up into three main pieces, and these pieces take very interesting and different roles in world history. Those three pieces and kingdoms break up into five, and you can see here the eastern half of Mesopotamia and Persia all the way to the Indus, ancient Egypt, the Anatolian Peninsula, and then of course Greece and Macedonia. And all of this was brought together by one man, Alexander. It was the Hellenistic culture, the blending of Greek, Macedonian, of ancient Egyptian, of Persian and Indian influences, as well as Mesopotamian, of course. And all of this not just changes the region, it changes Greece, and it's going to drift, and everything Greece has ever touched is going to be influenced by this Hellenistic culture. One of the notable achievements of Alexander, besides the fact that he conquered the ancient world, was the establishment of Alexandria. Now, this acted as a Greek-style capital for the region of ancient Egypt. It created a hub for trade, for the administration, and for the culture, to bring Greek culture to ancient Egypt and, of course, take it out. This was very meticulously crafted by Alexander, and when he died in Babylon, his body was eventually taken to Alexandria, Egypt, where he was buried. It became a pilgrimage for Julius Caesar and Augustus. When they conquered ancient Egypt, they came and paid tribute to the tomb of Alexander. But the Library of Alexander becomes one of the most famous buildings in the world. And of course, one of the seven wonders of the world was the lighthouse. Over 350 feet, the first lighthouse ever to guide ships in to the harbor, all of this was a tribute to Alexander's greatest city. There are also intellectual achievements of the Hellenistic era we see with the combination of Egyptian, Mesopotamian, Persian, Greek, and Indian knowledge. We have the basis of geometry. We estimate pi at 3.14159, continuing on and on infinitely. We see mechanization with machines and the first usage of steam power. While it might not be popularized till the Industrial Revolution, it was around in the BC era, and these achievements will set the foundation for future technologies and innovations. So through two men, Philip and Alexander, the conquest of the ancient Greeks, of Persians, of the Mesopotamians, of ancient India, ideas are going to spread and cultures combine forever in this new Hellenistic era in ways the world has never seen before. And after Alexander dies, while Greek civilization declines, their culture and those ideas continue to spread and proliferate throughout history, ultimately influencing one of the greatest empires ever, and some might say the sequel to ancient Greece, and that would be the Roman Empire. So take a few moments and let's answer our essential question: how did Alexander the Great's conquest influence the ancient world, and in what ways did Hellenistic culture shape Greece and the regions it touched? That wraps up our lesson. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. As always, check us out on Teachers Pay Teachers, YouTube, Rumble, and the Kloeker Education Foundation website. We have a ton of resources and a ton of free videos for you there as well. Let's get to our next unit. The Greeks thought deeply, the Romans thought bigger. They copied the gods, improved the weapons, and built an empire. They connected continents. This is no city on a hill. It's the rise of Rome. Yes, blood, ambition, betrayal, and glory. All that and more is just a click away. I'll see you there.